I'm your neighbor and we're organizing for 2020. Would you like to join us? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who's going to talk about upping our game with data.
But so before we dive into our plan for 2019 and 2020, I want to take a quick look back at what happened in 2018. So most of y'all know who Beto is on the next slide. Hopefully if you're at this club, you figured that out. But if we could go to the next slide. Do you know who all of these people are? So all of these people got elected last cycle because of all the hard work that you and people like you activists did. These people are young, they're female, and they're doing really, really amazing things in the few months they've been in office. And this didn't happen by accident. These folks flipped these districts because they knocked on a lot of doors, registered a lot of voters, engaged their local communities, and talked about their local issues. We need to do this 9 more times in 2020 to flip the state house and flip everything below along with it. Next slide. Since these victories, people are talking. Texas is a battleground state, and it's our job as activists to make this happen and flip the state at every level next cycle. And how are we going to do this? Sorry, next slide. How are we going to do this? We're going to flip the state house in 2020. We're going to flip our U.S. Senate seat. We're going to expand voters, expand voter protection. And as a party and as activists, we're going to wrap around all these campaigns to make sure they have what it takes in order to win. Next slide. So what's the role in data in all of this? As we run everywhere, across the state, up and down the ballot, it's important that our organizers, our volunteers, our community activists, just like you, are able to do work informed by data-driven decisions. And that's where me and my team come in. So I'm going to run y'all through a little bit of what we did in 2018 and then talk to y'all about what we're planning to do in 2020. I won't go through everything on all these slides, but I do want to go through a couple of the highlights of what we did in 2018 as a data team. I hope that y'all knew about these, found these helpful. They're all things we want to expand upon in 2020, and we're always looking for your feedback on how we can make this even better. So a couple things to touch on here. For the first time, we introduced statewide targets. These were loaded into VAN and hopefully informed a lot of the decisions that y'all were making at a precinct, county party, and campaign level. The goal of these is to be able to take what we're seeing across the state, make data-driven decisions on who we should talk to, what scores to use, what those cutoffs are, but then also enable a little bit of coordination between the campaigns. There's nothing more frustrating than going to a house and seeing 5 other flyers from all the Democrats already there, especially when we know that there's a bunch of houses we're not talking to because we've been to this house 5 times. And so one of the big things that we're able to do with our statewide targets is update them every single night, pulling out people that have been attempted or recently contacted so that we can try to hit as many people as possible.
Hey, Lauren, what's VAN?
Yeah, great question. VAN, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, VAN, Vote Builder, Voter Action Network, they're all used a little bit synonymously. This is the voter database that all Democratic campaigns really across the country use. We have the voter file, we have targets and models and scores kind of telling people whether or not we think somebody is a Democrat or Republican or undecided. It's something that campaigns across the state can buy into for a nominal fee through the state party, and it's something that county parties, precinct chairs, local activists, and clubs can get for free, with assuming there's coordination with the county party to make that happen. And I think y'all are going to get some specific training in VAN and minivan later today. If we could go to the next slide. Okay. So in addition to what we were doing in terms of trying to figure out which voters we want to be talking to, we also did a lot of work at the state party to help people figure out how they were doing and help inform which precincts, which geographies we wanted to be talking to based on what was already happening. And we saw this in the profiles we put out, the reports we were doing, and then all of that early vote reporting that was happening. Next slide, please. Yeah, perfect. What else are we doing? So a lot of VAN support, as we described, that's the voter file. Last cycle, we had about 600 campaigns in VAN and about 15,000 users in VAN. This is huge because all the data that's in VAN is being compliantly shared campaign to campaign. It means that if you go to a house and realize that Joe Smith has moved and isn't a voter there, that can be shared with everybody else. And as I talk about where we're going to put the data and why we need everybody's data back, this is exactly why. So we're not wasting our resources talking to the same voters. So where did that lead us last cycle? Together in Van, we have record of conversations with 6.8 million unique voters. That's a lot of conversations and magnitudes more than we have recorded in a coordinated manner from any other cycle. But it's not enough. We have 15 million voters in Texas. We know that turnout in 2020 is going to be, if not 8.5, at least 9 million. And we need to be talking to a whole lot more. We identified 1.7 million Democrats in the state last cycle. That's cool, but we're going to need a lot more in order to flip. About 4 million people told us which way they lean. We had 113 million contact attempts. That's contact attempt via door, via phone, via text, via whatever medium you're using. We had 23 million conversations with voters. That's a lot of voter contact through people like you, but we're going to need even more in order to flip the state in 2020. Go to the next slide. So victory in 2020 is going to depend on us all running data-driven campaigns up and down the ballot. This means from the presidential to our U.S. Senate, down to all the local races and amazing candidates we heard from a few minutes ago, we're going to all need to be coordinated. And how are we going to do this? I'll hit on a couple of sort of key things that we're focusing on for this next cycle. The first is a new model. You'll probably have experience with a lot of the models that are in Van for those of you who are currently Van users. They're national models. They're not great. They don't do a good job of predicting who the voters are. Unfortunately, we've been using those, but I'm really hoping that we can build a team out at the state party to remodel everybody so that we have even better scores for all of y'all to use. So that's a big goal of mine over the next 6 to 8 months as we look to fundraise and build out a team. In addition to that, we want to provide additional targeting. So I really enjoyed talking to a lot of campaigns and county parties last cycle. I can't talk to everybody. I just don't earn enough hours in the day. And so it's a big goal of ours to provide some additional folks to do targeting, to work much more directly with the campaigns and some of the county parties that have those districts we're trying to flip, directly on the team. We're going to do a lot more reporting, and we're going to make sure that everybody, all the activists like you, are in Van, know how to use Van, and getting your data back into Van. Great. So what are we going to do now? What are we going to do in 2019 and to kick off 2020 to make sure all of this happens? Next slide. So victory in 2020 starts in 2019. And here's kind of the 4 key things that we need everybody focused on right now in order to make sure we are victorious. We need to recruit volunteers to power our activism. It's so amazing to see all of you in the room right now. We're going to need about 10 of you for each of you that's here. So we're going to need all of you to go home and find all your friends and bring them back to meetings like this. We need to register more voters, especially the voters that have moved within Texas or to Texas, to make sure they're engaged in the system. We need to ID voters before 2020. What do I mean by that? There are a lot of voters that we're just not sure how they voted. Their partisanship scores aren't that descriptive. They're new voters. Nobody's ever found them. We don't have good contact information for them. And we're not sure whether or not to target them in this next cycle. In fact, about 30% of Travis County voters, or north of 150,000 voters, who voted in 2018, we aren't sure which way they leaned. And so we need to go talk to those voters right now and figure out whether or not they are ours. This is especially important as we think about launching our vote by mail program next cycle. We'll start sending out applications for elderly folks to vote by mail at the beginning of 2020. And we want to have the best data to inform those targets. So all of the folks that we're not sure about, especially those over 65, we want to try to get in touch with in 2019, so that come 2020, anybody you talk to now that we weren't sure about who's a Democrat, they'll get an application to vote by mail. And you're going to talk to some Republicans in this because we're going a little bit low to figure out the people we don't know. But if you talk to a Republican now, we'll mark it down. No one else needs to talk to them. I'm not that worried about you turning them out. In over a year, if you talk to them now, they won't get a vote by mail application. They won't be in the target. So this is really, really important. And then the last thing we're focused on is engaging non-voters, people that are registered but not good at voting, people who've only voted once. I know these people are really hard to find. We don't have good contact for them. They're not used to picking up our calls or engaging with us. And so we want to start getting in touch with them now, both so that they're used to hearing from us and they're learning how to vote, but also so that we can get their phone number, their email, their correct address, so that we know where to find them come the primary when we increase our primary turnout, as well as come the general. And this might sound like a lot of work. Sorry, if you could go back to the last slide.
I don't know how to go back to the last slide.
Oh, no worries. Okay, well, we're a couple slides ago. We can get these shared. This might sound like a lot of work, but at the state party, we've already put targets in van to make it really easy to cut the groups of these folks for your precinct. And even if you're not in van, we've actually developed some links that are right here that will allow you to get started calling or block walking today without having van access. If you go to that block walk link right now, you'll get a van list ID for the whole state of the people we're trying to talk to, and you can enter that into minivan. It'll find the 40 closest doors for you, and you can just get going. So you don't have to log into van, cut the list, figure out the targets. Similarly with the calls, you can go to that link right now, sign up, and be logged into a virtual phone bank of people we're trying to ID. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you. Next slide, please. And in all of this, we need the data back. It's really, really important to go talk to voters, but if I'm not getting that data back at the state party, it doesn't inform the targets, it doesn't inform the contact information, and it's not something that everybody else can use. So what kind of tools do we use to get the data back? First, we like to do volunteer recruitment using Mobilize America. It's a tool that as a county party, y'all have access to. If anybody has questions about it, feel free to ping the data team. It allows you to put your events, meetings like this, block walks online, the link and a map from our Texas Democratic Party website. And most important, we'll collect voter information, phone numbers, email addresses, and those will sync over to the voter file database when we have them, so it's really easy to find our volunteers. The second thing we like to do is block walk using minivan. I know y'all are going to have a minivan training a little bit after this. The things we really like about minivan are, first of all, it means we're getting the data back about whether or not somebody was a voter immediately. So it's really, really efficient. The lists don't get lost. We don't need to worry about reading them. The second thing I like about it is that you can actually get a lot more information about the voter in minivan than you're going to get on those printed forms. You can get their primary history, see the notes, see information about their targeting, so you learn a lot more about the voter before you go up to their door. Third thing I like about it is you can actually update contact information right in the app. So if I'm having a conversation with a voter at the door, I can get their phone number. Now it's automatically in the database. I don't need to worry about entering that back in. And the fourth thing that I really like about it, and a lot of my family members like as well, is you can actually increase the font size a lot in minivan. And those printed wallpapers, you need a magnifying glass for. So once you get used to using minivan, I think it's actually a lot easier to use. Phone banking using virtual phone banks. That's an online tool. You can use it on your smartphone or on your computer. You'll get the voter information, the script, all right there. Same thing. It goes straight back into van. And then any other tools we're using, like Hustle or Relay for texting or auto dialing, we like to make sure they're linked back up to van so that all the data goes into van. So that's all I've got for y'all. Yeah. Excited to use data. Of course.